You remember that we've been watching this episode, but I've never finished it, where Lex was interviewing this man. And there is one last section that I was curious to check out with you. It's not long, it won't take us a long time. And it's this professor. Now, the whole section, which was about the linguistic aspects of Akkadian, Sumerian, and then the Babylonians and their religion, I found it very interesting. The part where he talked about how he explains, understands, and translates cuneiform. We watched that. I loved it. I think this guy's a gem. The section where he talked about religion, specifically his antipathy towards monotheistic religions, and specifically, I think Christianity didn't say, but I think that I strongly disagreed and cringed monumentally. I think that part was awful. But I still like the guy. It's an example of I can disagree, but still think the guy's cool. We watched the section about this royal game of Ur, which was a game used in the, I believe, Bronze Age. So that was fantastic. He has one last part that it's called Evolution of Human Civilization. I am very interested and I love talking about civilization. As I say, it's not long, so I wanted to have a look so that we can consider this video to be completed, and then we can move on to a completely new guest or a completely new channel, of course. Okay, so let's see what the professor thinks about the evolution of human civilization.
There's so many questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
What wisdom do you think the people from whom these artifacts came had that the modern day humans may have lost, or lost in part or in whole?
Yeah.
So it's often, as you've spoken about, we see the ancient peoples as lesser, dumber, more primitive. And you've spoken about how they are basically the same.
I think you put them on a bus, all wearing the same clothes, you wouldn't know. That's my feeling.
But I'm sure there's some greater wisdom they had about certain things, as
sure.
We have greater wisdom about others.
Yep.
Thanks to Einstein, we figured out the curvature of space-time, which they didn't know about. But
they knew quite a lot about astronomy, though. Quite a lot about astronomy.
They stared at the stars.
Yeah, and they measured
the Egyptians too.
Them, and they made calculations. And when the Greeks went to Babylon, they think, "Hey, man, this is really cool," and they wrote it all down and went home. Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's a hard question to answer. But one of the things is that they were spared things which have cluttered up the essence of humanity.
Yes.
Because I think that the modern adherence to the electronic universe is disastrous for humans. And because it reduces the vitality of the human component, I think it's restrictive in a way that people don't realize until it's too late. Like drugs, if you take drugs now and again, you think, oh, it's fine. Then suddenly you realize you're addicted to heroin. It's a bit like that. People use the electronic world like an addictive drug, and they can't get through without it. And I think this is a very recent thing, but I suppose it's not, I'm a Luddite and say we shouldn't have railway engines and we shouldn't have kettles. But I think one of the things about the ancient world was that people never went anywhere unless they were merchants or soldiers. They never went anywhere. Probably people born and died in a village, and then their children born and died in the village, and they never knew anything about the outside world. Maybe very little. Sometimes there'd be a message, but in principle, they had no idea about other countries, other languages, or how big they were. So I don't think they had wisdom in a way that you could type out following precepts will make life better. Because they told lies and they esteemed the truth, and they fell in love and they committed adultery and they did murder and they did all the things.
Humans are humans.
I think in a way the ancient world allowed human beings to behave more naturally than it does now.
Yes.
The world in which we live. I mean, if you do live in a rustic environment or by the sea or you're a fisherman all those normal, real kind of things, then it's probably all right. But most people who live crammed in the cities live a very, very artificial life where the principles which they regard as ineluctably crucial are not ineluctably crucial. They're not one example, is this.
He's excellent. He made a very good point. I wanted to find a good spot to stop for a second so I can interject, because I do need to make the video transformative in nature. Although, I'll be honest with you, I would just listen to the guy. He is right. Our lives are a lot more artificial. One type of wisdom that people from the past, whether it be the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, classical antiquity, but even prehistoric people, they would have had knowledge of skills that we don't need anymore. So I'm not only talking about the fact that the average Joe knew how to ride a horse, whereas for us it's just either you're born rich and you're like one of those rich kids that learn horseback riding, or maybe you have the passion and you decide you want to do it. But how many people actually know how to ride an animal within any given population cluster, particularly in first world cities? So not only, and I'm not just talking about these kind of practical skills, how to sew, how to knit. Heck, we have lost this from our grandparents. Our grandparents knew how to make pasta from scratch, knit, repair stuff. We throw everything away. People in the Middle Ages were freaking machines. Have you ever seen in details with a magnifying lens, and I say that because I did, the kind of clothing such as the doublets that were created in the 15th, 16th century, 14th century? When you look at the precision, it looks machine-made because they were that good. This is what happens, and when you continuously repeat the skill. And so there would have been a lot more of this, but it's not even about these kind of practical skills. It's, for instance, you can imagine someone in the Mesolithic, in a hunter-gatherer village, and there will be people that will know everything about, for instance, mushroom types, what you can't touch. This herb is fine. This herb is not fine. Don't go out at night. Don't go to this area of the forest. I know exactly where this river takes. We don't have this. We lost all of this. So the reality is that if we take most of us and you put me in a Neolithic forest, I'm finished. And simply because I know what a computer is, first and foremost, I don't know the first thing on how the transistors work, to be honest. So we feel like, oh, I'm so advanced, I know what computers are, right? But most of us don't know how these things actually operate inside. There's very few that understand how you make the billions of transistors that go inside the chip in the motherboard of your computer. And even if you were one of these engineers, yeah, good luck explaining that to the pack of wolves. Problem is, though, that if the people of the period come to save you, they will. They'll know how to fight. They'll know how to hunt. They will, so they have skills and wisdom that is connected to what they need to survive in their world. And we have our own understanding, like he said, the scientific stuff that now tends to be common knowledge because of education. And so we have that, and that's great. So we all have pros and cons. It's not a matter of modern man, we know everything, and ancient man, a bunch of idiots. It's not how it is. Think of it this way, and that's the last thing I'm going to say when I let him speak for now. We talked about Einstein. There probably was an Einstein-type intellect person in the Paleolithic. 100%. So what did they do? He probably was great at what he was doing. Maybe he's the guy who invented flint. He's like, you know what, flint, if you use a harder rock, I can crack it and I can learn how to make a spear. And then when I when I use bone and I cut it this way, I can use it in the trajectory. Maybe he invented the freaking bow. So yeah, there would have been an Einstein in prehistory. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.
Ghastly thing on mobiles where you get a short clip from a real program.
Yeah.
I think it's utterly, utterly wicked. So you have children all over the world who cannot articulate, spell, or make meaning clear using the best, most literary and most beneficial language that's ever been created, which is English, to save their lives. And they use a word. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Right? Like I went.
Like I went.
Like I went.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to define that grammatically. Difficult, like I should have gone. Where I went or I should have gone means to speak. Now, how would it be if when we see the verb to go in Sumerian, it actually meant to speak? where would we be? Where would we be?
I mean, we should probably say that even in that time, there was probably slang, right? It just wouldn't end up
Yes, there were
written,
dialects. There were
Yes.
words that sailors used. For sure, all those things,
but they wouldn't end up in writing.
sometimes they do.
We have to remember that Cambridge and Oxford speak in a certain way that's proper and formal and
Yes.
very smart. But there's most of the people in
Yeah.
bars, sailors have a different way of speaking.
They
So they would
do.
probably say, like I went, and
Their
have
own version,
emojis and
Emojis.
But the thing is, you have to moderate your vocabulary
oh yeah,
if you talk to people of a certain age, because
actually
they don't
love-
know what the you're talking about.
I love his mannerism. Like the way he goes so... I actually love this guy's mannerism. You know what I would love to play with this guy? A game of Hero Quest.
If you use language exactly. And the thing which is so exquisite about English is, like with a barrister, you can make a case which is absolutely wonderful because it says exactly what it means and there's no wriggle room. And that conversation should be like that, with no wriggle room. It's not just a matter of spelling, but the basic vocabulary. You know something very interesting? People say they know English or they speak English. Have you ever in your life opened a full-size volume of the Oxford English Dictionary? It's about that, like this fact.
Right, but that's applicable to a lot of other languages. Now, given some languages have a higher number of words, that's a fact. But then again, what he's saying now sounds a little Anglo-centric, to be honest. I don't know if he has... I know he knows Akkadian, whatever the heck, but I don't know if he has any expertise in any other language. Because one thing that I noticed as a language learner, spent decades learning languages, is that when you are a beginner, like when I was a beginner at Japanese, or when I started my journey through Mandarin Chinese, I thought, man, Italian is so much more complex. We have so many different things to say the same thing. Instead, for them, it's not like that. But the reality is that I was having a Dunning-Kruger effect. I did not have the skill level to really understand and assess the complexity and depth of foreign language I was trying to learn, my target language. And I did the same with English, by the way. When I picked it up, it's still my second language. I'm not a native speaker. And when I started learning English in the UK, moved to England as a teenager, I thought, man, I could explain philosophy in Italian, but talking about, these things in English, how would you even do it? But as you get deeper and deeper into the language and become more and more proficient, you realize, man, this language is as deep as mine. So it's a little bit of a beginner's mistake to think that, in my language, it's because you don't know the words. In the other, that's why you're getting that. It's because you have a small vocabulary, not the average educated native who actually speaks the language. And that's important to keep in mind. How many languages do you speak? 7 up to now, and I don't think I'm going to increase that because I want to increase the level of these rather than keep adding numbers. But that's where we're at.
I have a whole set. I love them. So this is it. You take a volume off the shelf and you open the book and you run your forefinger down the various columns of writing.
You won't. No.
You might have to turn several pages
He's
before
right.
you find a single word you've ever heard before.
Yeah.
Because English is unimaginably rich. I grew up in a house where everybody read literature all the time. I had 3 sisters and then a brother, and we all read literature. Went to the library every week, read.
Of course he did. Of course he grew up reading literature.
Lots and lots and lots of books. So we all had really good vocabulary. And that's how you get vocabulary. Otherwise you don't, because in conversation, do you want more tea, all this sort of stuff, you don't learn your vocabulary. You have to get it from reading and listening to proper stuff.
we should say the very
That's a strange way to put it. I might disagree, but I don't want to get too pedantic, so I'll just let it go.
important aspect of vocabulary, why it's important to know a lot of words and to speak clearly, because those words also define the quality of your thoughts.
Sure.
I actually can't let it go. So what he said is, you can't learn a language by reading. You can expand your vocabulary a lot, but if you only read, and I say that as a foreign language learner, you will never be able to say it. It will just, maybe, best case scenario, it will end up in your passive, so your vocabulary. You might be able to understand it. But the people that spend all the time reading, particularly if it's foreign language, if it's your own language, it's different. But in a foreign language, maybe that's what he meant. So I'll steal Manny's argument. Let's say that he only means to improve your own language knowledge and depth of vocabulary. Okay, so I'm just now talking about a different discussion. But if you want to learn to speak another language and you want those words in your active vocabulary, something you can recall when you need it, you've got to speak, and you have to have a conversation, because a conversation creates an experience, and the experience sticks in your memory. If you read, this is how you're going to speak. It's the plus with horrible pronunciation.
At the end of the day.
That's exactly right. I must say, I think it is a pity if, having produced such wonderful languages in the world, that their use is so inhibited.
I think the right way to think about it is the way the British Museum thinks about it. So you're commenting on the ephemeral, on the thing that is in the moment right now is happening. The reality is only a few select things will last 100, 200 years from now about this moment in time. And so we have to sort of think with the big picture perspective and the slowness of time. Yes, in the moment there's these catastrophes, there's changing ways of speaking, the technology tearing apart the fabric of society. But when you zoom out, you will think about the grand ideas of Einstein, the battle of ideologies with communism and Nazism of the 20th centuries, the bad, the triumphant, the rockets. These humans started launching rockets, going to the moon, maybe to Mars. Those things. And we won't be thinking about emojis and any of that.
Emojis. Did you hear that? Apparently Elon Musk said that he's kind of ditching the Mars colony for now, and he's going to start building a human colony and a self-sufficient city on the moon instead. Did you hear that? I actually read it on X. And it's not that he's giving up on Mars entirely, it's just that he's doing a step onto the moon first, because it's a lot easier. You can get to the moon in a couple of days. Whereas for Mars, it's like months. And so it would require, it's a lot more dangerous. Good. I think it's a good choice. Yeah, it is better. It's to start with that and make it successful at an easier task. It's going to be easier also if something breaks, you can just send up repairs and stuff. And then if that works well, and you might even launch from the moon at that point when you want to go into your expedition to Mars. I think that was a good call.
And in some sense, that's the stuff you're looking at with cuneiforms. Is
love it.
The things that stand the test of time, that are there.
That's true. But I think that language, properly used, is a crucial human tool for communication.
Absolutely, yes. Speaking of which, I have to ask some more about the cuneiform tablets.
Yeah, do it.
At the British Museum, when you're surrounded by so many, and by the way, how many cuneiforms?
About 130,000.
That is so cool.
It is. It's pretty cool.
What are some of the most beautiful to you? Maybe ones we don't know about cuneiforms. Like that make you smile.
Well, there are not many jokes. You asked about jokes.
Yeah, they lost their sense of humor in cuneiform.
Yeah, I think there are. There's one that I can remember. This was that a fly or mosquito lands on the back of an elephant and says, "Am I too heavy for you?" or something like that. That's the sort of Babylonian joke.
Yeah,
you wouldn't use it in the harbour or anything like that.
Yeah. You had to be there.
And also, do you like Tom Lehrer?
Of course.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I once went to America on a lecture tour, and I ended up in a town where Dr. Werner von Braun ended up running the American rocket industry.
It doesn't matter.
What were you saying? Dude forgets he needs a mic. I know, but I actually find that endearing. So I don't mind. I find it funny. In a good way.
Once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down?
They come down.
That's not my department, says Werner von Braun.
That guy, I mean, I could tell where your wit comes from. The fact that you know Tom Lehrer.
But he's the way he plays the piano is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think my dad recorded them off the radio on a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and I learnt them all by heart because they were so fantastic. But I knew a Harvard professor who I stayed with once, who was a sumerologist, and his wife said that she knew Tom Lehrer when he was in the maths department, and they used to have parties, and he always played the piano in the corner of the room. He's just amazing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he had a real. You have that. You know, I've watched a lot of your stuff, your whole way of being, the wit. There's something about that, like
It is
biting
yeah,
wit. It's a
biting.
bit of
Yeah.
humor, a bit of sadness in it. It just kind of feels like it really quickly gets to the complexity of what it means to be human.
I think so. But the paradoxical thing about Tom Lehrer is that when he's talking about the bomb and all that, and devices and international trouble, it's so unchanged.
Yeah, yeah.
And same with Dr. Strangelove. It's very remarkable. Anyway, next time you're here, or when you're here, you should come and see me in the museum, and I'll show you some of these confounded things for yourself, and show you the Chicago Dictionary, and give you a grammar book to learn.
That's awesome. Like, I really like the guy. All right, so that's the end of the interview. So we made it to the end, guys. And I thought it was a fantastic interview, even though, as I say, the middle, I wasn't a big fan, but of what he was saying. But I think the guy is awesome. I respect the beard. I love his mannerism. I think he's an incredible intellect. As always, I like Lex, the way he asks the questions and the kind of guests he has and the conversations that are born from these interactions. I think are always very, very interesting, and I very much appreciate that.